Oh, wow. We're live. And Lord Buckley is angry.
Wow. Well, everybody should be angry. I mean, the fact that it's Veterans Day magnifies it, what's going on. I mean, if you're not angry, you're either brain dead or a commie at this point in the game. So, I mean, which side are you on? And the old question, it's now become populist versus totalitarian. So I think we talked about this, Eric and I, about the old left-right model is now kaput. It now becomes,
Up, down.
Yeah, up, down, populist versus totalitarianism. And oddly enough, I mean, I'm angry and I'm sad about what happened last week. I mean, I made some predictions. I'm not happy about the predictions that I made. But today, being Veterans Day, just magnifies it. I mean, I feel worse for veterans than I do for myself, about what's going on. I mean, they, fought and died for this country. A lot of them left limbs, around the world, and yet they have to watch this debacle going on. I mean, if you're not angry or sad over what's happening right now, you got a problem. Let me just put it that way. You got a problem.
Well, somebody did have a good slogan, Biden Fetterman 2024.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
So
that may be their model, to have these people who are disabled and have a group in back of them, who run the show as a cabal.
Well, it's mind-boggling to me that I think it was MSNBC who actually floated the idea of Fetterman for president. And there's a certain point when you're like, okay, they're just toying with us now.
Right.
It's like we're not even pretending anymore that there's any kind of reasonable thinking or anything else. It's like, no, we're just going to rub your nose in it, and we're going to do whatever we can. And it's hard to take anything seriously at that point.
Well, for a year, I've been saying, to my people that this election, we should use the word selection. That may get us around certain things. I thought if we say selection,
always say selection. Perfect.
Okay, it's my new thing. Selection.
I
came up with that last night, and I thought if you stop between like this and selection, so it's not blurred audio wise, you may be able to get away with it. But I had said all year that this selection would indicate whether we are a free country, a democracy or not. And I was hoping for the best. I mean, Barnes was far more optimistic than I was. And now I think we've gotten the answer. And the question is, where do we go from here? I mean, what is the next move? I mean, how many selections does the average American need before they wake up and realize what I've determined for myself to be the truth and others have?
Well, I keep thinking of margin of fraud, and I think it comes down to that, where there is a certain point where it's overwhelming. Like, from what I understand, Stacey Abrams actually conceded,
right?
Which was a miracle for everybody. It's like, oh, she can do it, but
right? Because it must have been so overwhelming. Yeah, it must have been so overwhelming. But these other races that I had talked about previously, the delay in the counting could be done like we've seen all around the world. And people keep pointing to phony ineptitude in the counting. It's not ineptitude in the counting. First of all, the long counts, as I'm calling them, are intentional in these close races. And to explain the physics of it, when they stop, they will interstitially stop after X amount of counts, like 5,000. I'm just saying randomly. They look at the ratio at 5,000, and then they begin to shuffle in what they need from the outside world. And then they go to the next 5,000 or the next 50,000, and they shuffle in what they need from the outside world. The long counts are intentionally long because of the physicality involved in shuffling in the outside stuff. Now, the outside stuff, which we've discussed before, can be in safe houses in San Bernardino. We have a case here in LA where the registrar has said the count will take till December 6th. Okay. I mean, it's physically insanely impossible that that's true. So what is happening in the interim? A logical person can discern based on what we've seen, what is going to go on in the interim. And in that interim is the physical sliding in of these these items
the material. Yeah.
Of the material. And you may find a dead body and find out that it's dead and not know what the cause of death is, but you still know it's a dead body. To keep referring to these situations as being ineptitude is insane and stupid. It's not ineptitude, people. This is being done intentionally. As Tucker pointed out last night, he went back over 13 different elections that were long counts, and 75% of them roughly ended up in the D. And these were in red certain areas that ended up in long counts. He pointed out Orange County from 4 years ago, which everyone was astonished about here, where there was a long count, and the same thing happens. At some point, we have to say that this is not working and move on to another thing. I don't know what the other thing is, but until we begin to realize that this is gone, this system that we have of this particular area of our social life and political life has been taken. Do we need 5 of these selections? 4, 7? How many times are we going to go through this? Is this going to go through it in 2024 again, Eric, and just hope for the best? With all the phony infighting they're creating between the governor of Florida and the former president, that, which is one of the best things that's happened in this situation, is the forcing out of all these people who Trump and DeSantis may find to be the enemy. We may have smoked out a lot of people that we didn't know were anti-Trumpers.
Yeah. I talked about that with Nate earlier, because he's doing a video coming out on this stuff, and he finds it amusing because Nate's our favorite lefty, if you will. But as I told him when he named some of the people, I was like, well, that's a grifter. I knew that person was a grifter from way back when, and they're a grifter. I'll say Candace Owens, grifter. She's a grifter.
I disagree with you. She's a true believer. But I was watching that show.
Not in Trump. Read her stuff lately.
Oh, that I don't know. So I'm saying that might be another one. Yeah, I haven't checked every single person, but watching that Tim Pool with Milo yesterday and watching Milo just shred them, just absolutely shred those kids was wonderful. Every one of those kids showed their true feelings towards Trump in that show yesterday that you asked me to watch. And I was just wonderful because he, was full-throated Trumper. For whatever you think of Milo, I think the guy's a comic genius and a brilliant political satirist. He just shredded those kids. It was wonderful to watch, but
I told you you'd like it.
I know. I really liked it. That was very entertaining. Very entertaining.
It was like a 24-minute monologue.
Yeah. Like... I strongly recommend that for people who really want to see the true colors behind that team that Poole and his group have. Look, they are what they are. He's got a lot of followers, so who am I to say? But the reality of it is, I don't know how, even in theory, unless you do a JFK, you wrest the nomination from the former president. What do you have, a primary where this guy from Florida shows up with 5 voters? It's absurd. It's absurd. The logic, whether you like this guy or not, he got 85 million votes in the last election. Okay, that's
no matter how you break it down, no matter how you break it, the second most votes in history.
Right. Sheer political logic, and I'm not saying that people on the right or the left have sheer political logic, but sheer political logic would indicate that you ride on that horse you came in on until that horse is dead. Then you could switch over to some Floridian thoroughbred if you like. For the future. But right now, this is the hand we're being dealt. And I think it behooves everyone who is against the state. And I say the state because yesterday Biden said he was going to go after Musk, and the Federal Trade Commission came out. The head of the Federal Trade Commission came out with a revelation that I didn't know about. I was talking to some friends about it last night. He cited a secret 2011 consent decree under the Obama administration, where they got Twitter to agree to government control because of some nefarious stuff Twitter was doing, some racial disparity in their workforce probably. And the head of the FTC that said that consent decree was renewed shortly in January, February of this year before the sale to Musk began to take off. It's almost like an insurance policy. So what he threatened Musk with was multi-million-dollar lawsuits per day, fines per day, if he didn't cooperate with the Federal Trade Commission on, I don't know, whatever bizarre things that they want to maintain, I guess, not firing that last guy who got fired yesterday. Right. I don't know the guy. I forgot the guy's name, but he was apparently
the one behind the laptop and Trump, along with Vajia or whatever her name is.
Right. So he was so deep state that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, was getting rid of that guy, that deep state operative who was in charge of practices and censorship, whatever his name was over there. So, I mean, they are, as Tucker has pointed out, they're coming at Musk, who was a darling 5 minutes ago on the left, simply because of this product. If he had bought Paramount Pictures, do you think we'd be hearing anything like this?
Well, this is scary. I mean, okay, let's do this, and then we got to get into the questions.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yoel Roth. Thank you, Alan Hughes.
Oh, Yoel Roth. Okay, thank you.
I couldn't remember the name. Oh, geez. I literally just forgot my train of thought. Anyway,
I assume you wanted to sell some of your stuff or subscribe button. Maybe hit a subscribe button.
I can find a subscribe button. I'm always.
I don't know. I'm just passing by.
No. I was going to say something about the whole Musk thing, but it just completely slipped, and I'll probably pipe off about it later.
The real incredible press conference takeaway was his statement about going after Trump and stopping him from running for president, no matter what it takes, an indictment. I mean, that was the scariest thing I've ever heard. The Musk thing was second. The Trump one was first. I mean, combine those two statements by that maniac, and you could see why everybody in this country should be angry at what's going on. Not only do we have this maniac on top with all these metrics indicating that the selection should have gone a certain way. The selection should have gone as Barnes had indicated, and he was correct based on his metrics. And I didn't have any metrics. I'm just saying that they're playing for keeps. They don't care what your feelings are. They don't care that you find them to be hypocrites. They don't care that it's obvious to you what's going on. They could give a shit. You got to get over this, people. Stop complaining and get off your fat asses and do something. And you say, well, what can I do? I just have a fat ass. Start to meet in small groups. Start to talk to people you trust. Form groups and clubs wherever the hell you live. It's enough already. You've got to do something about this. I suggested last week that we begin to talk about, reporting in terms of selection from big cities first, and then make them complete their selection process before the rest of the state reports. I mean, there's different ideas. Obviously, there's different ideas, but the early voting and the late voting is designed for a purpose. It's not designed, put it this way, have the machines early and late voting sped up this process or slowed it down. I mean, think about the logic behind using the machines. What are the point of the machines now? Right. Okay. So that's out. Other than being broken down, I mean,
well, it's not broken everywhere either. I mean,
right.
It's only broken as I was commenting earlier today, but I'm in Virginia, and I managed to walk in. I held up my driver's license, give it to them. They look at the list and they go, "Oh, Eric Hunley, okay,
yeah.
What's your address?" And they asked me. I thought that was actually a good double blind because people might fake it or whatever. I'm like, "Oh, it's such and such." They're like, "Okay, here's that. Go grab the ballot from the person." Walked over, filled out the ballot, then put it in the machine, and the machine has both the ballot and it counts. It doesn't seem that hard. I think Virginia results were done like 5 minutes after.
All of them could be done in 5 minutes. It's not that they can't do it. This is intentional. People have got to get their minds around this. Think about the narrative stories that they keep coming up with, from the broken pipe in Atlanta to the lights going out in Nevada to the printers breaking. The narratives don't even matter anymore. It's an FU. They don't care whether you believe their excuses or not. The end justifies the means for these people. They're going to come out with a number no matter how long it takes. That's what the delay is, the amount of physicality involved in getting trucks backed in, to weaving these things into the process and pulling out a number. They have made, and I'll just end after this, but they have made this into a sporting themed event where it's 50-51 at the half, that it's 49-47 in the first quarter, that New Mexico kicked a field goal. They're up by 3. They're using that metaphor to put you to sleep, people. It is not a sports event. These updates are unnecessary. Think about the updates. Who gives a shit with 44,000 votes? What the 44% of the ballot done? Who gives a crap what the update is, right? What does that do for anybody? It creates a narrative, a themed sports metaphor. Then your team loses at the end. Tough break. We'll get them next year. It was a great game, Packers versus Cowboys. Cowboys scored in the final minute of the game in a 2-minute drill. That's the image they're covering. That's what they're copying, people. Don't fall for this sports metaphor. You want the results within the first couple of hours after the polls close. That should be legislated. I
agree. I mean, it can be. I mean, it's done. It's done in many, many places. Including, I mentioned Virginia, which is very fractious. I mean, Virginia is a purple state,
right?
But in terms of the vote count and everything, it's pretty clean as far as I can tell.
How about here? I mean, we have a situation with 2 people running in absentee ballots. They're sitting there. Dean Logan, who is a avowed Marxist, revolutionary. He's in charge of counting the votes. He won't let anybody see. I emailed Caruso and I said, why are you not down there with cameras filming the count? Well, the count's going to take till December 6th, right? Why? Because that's the legal limit of the count, December 6th. There it is. So they're going to take their time and whatever. Obviously we know what the results are going to be. But the point of the matter is, it's unstoppable. You can't just sit there filming 24/7, with cameras. They won't even let people in to see it here. And this is two Democrats. They invented the system here. This is where it was born. This is against their own, Eric.
Agreed. So let's go into the Q&A part. We definitely need to jump in there. Folks, to help me out, if you just say question, because I know that you're talking amongst yourselves too, which I appreciate, but it'll help me do it. I'm going to locals, to Rumble, and to YouTube, and doing my best to keep track of everything. But I'm going to start with locals because, yes, we give priority to locals, folks. And we do appreciate everyone who is supporting us on locals all the time. That's kind of our home in case everything goes tits up. Which is not it's not impossible.
It's not impossible at this point. I'm expecting them to come for all of us.
Exactly. And on locals, let me see. We've already got a locals tip for $20 in locals. So somebody's already supporting us, tipping us, which is amazing.
That's amazing.
I really, really appreciate it. It's Wells Mortensen, and it's a bit of a longer one, but it's hello, gents. Many thanks for both of your talents.
He's a foreigner.
Maybe.
Anyone who starts with hello, gents. That's not our usual audience, but go on.
Well, there you go. What are the chances on special episode? Yeah, you're right. On particular statuesque figure of one Herman Kahn, OG, Dr. Strangelove, and founder of the Hudson Institute.
I don't know what that's about.
Okay.
The movie or the book or.
I'm not sure. And then moreover, have you considered auctioning topics for future episodes?
Yes, that's what I want to do. I want to auction the topics. I just got an email from Spirit Airlines, my flight to Dallas. They're auctioning off my seat if I want to bid for a better seat.
Oh, really?
I swear to God, I've never flown Spirit, and so far it's a disaster. But I haven't.
Your spirit is low,
right? They said my opening bid should be $58 if I want to compete with the others to get a better seat on the plane. I don't know what that means, but go on.
Okay, well, hopefully I will see you in Dallas next week.
Yeah, because I'm going to start riding my bike to get there.
You better get off the show now.
Right.
Let me see. So I'm going. Let me see. Auction for episode on Maryland Bonkers. I presume mostly about me, though. Anyway, I don't think we're going to be auctioning. That's too difficult to handle and too many parameters. And most of these shows are related to Mark, his life, or something you've researched or studied or and put
Right. See,
together.
this as I reported before, the structure of the show is in between shows. When Eric and I decide on what we're going to do, I have to go crazy reading all the books about that topic to get ready for the show, and there's barely enough time after we select what the topic is for me to finish what I'm actually doing, let alone to auction it off and have it that way. I'm trying to do these things for a certain intellectual structure that happens. I mean, it looks crazy and it looks like it's all over the map, but it's not. I mean, we tend to, like on Tuesday, we're going to do Malcolm Wallace, who was a thug hitman for LBJ. So that may tie into what we did last week with LBJ in the selection episode that we just did. So there is a certain amount of logic, and it also takes in the amount of time I need between episodes. If it's a huge topic, it may take me a month to read all the books. And again, thanks to people on PayPal for sending me to even today, and to Eric writing checks to Eric and sending us money on PayPal for these.
Yeah,
books.
That was awesome. By the way, by the way, I am slow about getting to the PO box. I freely admit it. So somebody sent something like in October,
right?
Like Halloween, and I didn't get it until yesterday, the day before. But we still appreciate. I will get there eventually.
Right, and the PayPal Venmo stuff, the same thing with the JFK books. Even today, somebody sent me some donation for the JFK books, and there are plenty of books out there that I've been buying with these donations. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. So next we have another locals. And it looks like it's two comments that are kind of tied together. Thoughts on E. Howard Hunt in Dealey Plaza hit? Is Mark Lane on solid ground?
He is on solid ground. In fact, Liberty versus Hunt showed that Hunt had perjured himself as to his whereabouts. He claimed to have been in Virginia, in Williamsburg, shopping in that town right there, Eric, where John Hinckley lives. We were talking about before the show how John Hinckley, of all the places in the United States to live, lives within walking distance of Camp Peary, the farm, aka the training camp for the CIA in Williamsburg, Virginia, and has a post office box in the same post office that the CIA uses for The Farm, which was a script I wrote, which later became the movie The Recruit, which is another story. But the fact that he lives in Williamsburg, Virginia, which is known for only one thing, and that's the CIA, and he's selling merchandise saying Hinckley for president, is probably one of the most bizarre MK Ultra stories yet to be explored.
By the way, speaking of Williamsburg, it's known for another thing too, but it's not necessarily away from the CIA.
The colonial roots.
Colonial.
Oh yeah, no,
but
right.
no, but it was also rebuilt by the Rockefellers.
Right.
Completely restructured. The Rockefellers who then later on had a tie in with feminism, second wave. And
that's right.
Getting women in the workforce, and very much tied in with the deep state. I'm just saying. So
I know. And the farm.
Well, and the farm does have communities now where they can do training nearby. And there's something called the Colonial Parkway Murders that I'm hoping to cover at some point on my channel, which is very, very fascinating, because the farm allegedly will do practice training. Like, how do you follow somebody and they don't know it? And what better place than to practice on the local civilians?
Right. That's part of my script. Also, the farm is also involved in that stuff, the training inside of Williamsburg, doing stuff like that. Yeah. Phony missions and stuff like that, drops and stuff like that, the physical early training of agents in general, intelligence agents. And people can lease out the farm. I mean, the ONI does it. They use it. Other agencies use the farm for training ONI and NSA for their own physicality too.
Okay. And by the way,
but Hinckley's right there. So, I mean, if anybody wants to stop by and talk to Hinckley about political assassination, he's probably available.
And he's probably going to the post office quite a bit. He sells a lot of merch.
I know, more than us.
No kidding. All right. Wells Mortensen, by the way, just sent another $10 tip.
I love this guy. Where is he from? England?
Central Europe.
So Central Europe. Okay. That's a strange country.
And he said that OG Dr. Strangelove as the movie character modeled after father of nuclear doctrine of the U.S., Herman Kahn.
Right. I've heard that before.
And somebody else is saying that he's a real person, possibly the highest IQ ever recorded, kind of a Mycroft character described in Sherlock Holmes. And we'll go one more. What's your favorite MK Ultra themed movie? Also from locals.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I mean, you could take it Warren Beatty in The Parallax View. That's my movie of the week recommendation. Warren Beatty, Parallax View. Check it out.
I always love your little announcer voice. That cracks me up. All right, get a couple more real quickly. Good. 357 Spikes and a $10 tip. Whoa. Good work. Thanks from the Republic of Texas. Hope to maybe see you.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Pasha sent a $2 tip from locals. Pasha's everywhere. So when you say busy. I bought the farm, it may have this other meaning.
Possibly, if we can raise enough money. Yeah, through the donations.
All right. So let me see. I've got
Who said that? Pasha?
Pasha, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like him. That's right. That's fine.
Okay, Little Philly. Also with a $20 super chat. Hey, Mark, any inside info of Bob Crane's murder? And I can't remember.
No.
Interesting.
I don't have any insight into Bob Crane's murder.
Is that what we were thinking about doing or not? I don't remember. It came up.
I think it's just a gay thing that went bad. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I was some sort of, some sort of bondage or some sort of painful sex that went bad. I'm looking for something here. Hold on.
Good times. Let me see. I'll start collecting super chats.
Oh, sorry.
All right. All right.
I'm back.
Whoa, it's Dustin. Hi, guys. I bet my candidate would be better at not really answering questions than your candidate. Thanks for the show. Thank you.
I bet my candidate will be better at not answering questions than your candidate. Okay.
That's technically true. Nadoff Maver will pledge $1 million to your book fund if you unblock me. Username is Elon Musk. Cute.
I don't know who that is.
It's a joke.
Oh, it's a joke. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
All right. Politicians are not for people. We the people don't count.
Well, yeah, we'll see. That's true.
I'm going through some of these that were coming in earlier. Mark, I'm angry, yes, but I'm sad because so many people think that the selection results are good and fine and right.
Right, but I mean, we can't worry about those people who are on the other side, who may or may not be victims of MK Ultra, Rachel Maddow, cathode ray tube, mind control through the television.
Yeah, well, right. There is a way to approach this, and I always forget Daryl's last name. I want to say Daryl Davis, but he's the guy who collects clan robes.
Oh, right.
His methodology is really the best I can ever think of for changing minds, and it's don't argue with people directly. Just don't even bother.
Right. Well, we learned
ask them questions and just start saying, "Oh, why do you say that?" Interesting. Or if they say, "I hate fill in the blank,"
yeah,
just say, "Oh, that's interesting." And why? Why do you hate them? What did they do? And don't challenge them. Just ask and just keep asking questions over time, because that's the kind of thing that will actually cause shifting. If you just say, you're wrong, even if they're angering you, if you just say you're wrong, you're going to hit a roadblock and you're never going to change your mind. It's nearly impossible. Andy D watched my Exploring Skylar Nemitz stream, still freaked out by the narration of my dream. Okay. The good question for you, Mark. Do you have a narration in your dreams when you're dreaming?
A narration? You mean a voiceover, like somebody's narrating?
Yeah.
No, my dreams are always like movies. Just to be matter of fact about it, they always are movies. They're always quite realistic, and they're just whatever the theme is, I'm watching the movie in my dream, whether I'm part of it or not. They always seem quite realistic and movie-like. I don't know. That's kind of interesting, and I enjoy them. Most of the time, I'm just going, "Oh, this is interesting," and it's like when I wake up, it's like I've turned off the movie for a second, and sometimes I could go back to sleep and pick up the movie where it left off. Oddly enough.
Oh, I could do that too. Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't know. But does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's where I was trying to explain that last night, and that's what I was saying is I have a similar thing where it's like I'm sort of watching it, but I'm in it, but I'm also narrating it. And it's my voice that's actually narrating my dream. And I'll be saying, well, this is happening because fill in the blank is going on. And I don't know why I do that or what's going on, but my dreams are weird.
Well, I got interviewed yesterday by this is really a weird story, by some college girl who runs a newspaper and I guess apparently the whole tech program at Cal State here in Long Beach. And she interviewed me about my poetry. And she didn't know anything else about my life except that I was a poet. And I am published, and I did have a band, and we did perform spoken word, and we did do a lot of poetry, but it was kind of weird because the girl was just interviewing me about the creative process of how to make poetry. And I've never it was an odd interview. And I started to look at poetry after my own too, which I dragged out, and I started to look at some of it. And I started to look at other people's poetry. And I just wanted to read this poem if people will begrudge me a second here. Eric, if that's okay.
Co-host, dude, just do it.
Okay, I'm going to read this poem, and then we'll get back to the show. Come, you masters of war, you that build the big guns, you that build the death planes, you that build all the bombs, you that hide behind walls, you that hide behind desks. I just want you to know I can see through your masks. You that never done nothing but build to destroy, you play with my world like it's your little toy. You put a gun in my hand and you hide from my eyes, and you turn and run farther when the fast bullets fly. Like Judas of old, you lie and deceive. A world war can be won, you want me to believe. But I see through your eyes, and I see through your brain like I see through the water that runs down my drain. You fasten all the triggers for the others to fire. Then you sit back and watch when the death count gets higher. You hide in your mansion while the young people's blood flows out of their bodies and is buried in the mud. You've thrown the worst fear that can ever be hurled, fear to bring children into the world. For threatening my baby unborn and unnamed, you ain't worth the blood that runs in your veins. How much do I know to talk out of turn? You might say that I'm young. You might say that I'm unlearned. But there's one thing I know, though I'm younger than you, that even Jesus would never forgive what you do. Let me ask you one question. Is your money that good? Will it buy you forgiveness? Do you think that it could? I think you will find when your death takes its toll, all the money you made will never buy back your soul. And I hope that you die and your death will come soon. I'll follow your casket by the pale afternoon, and I'll watch while you're lowered down to your deathbed, and I'll stand over your grave till I'm sure that you're dead.
Is that yours or somebody else's?
No, it's not mine. I just thought it would be appropriate because of what we've been going through.
Well, it sounds like a veteran.
Veterans, it is a veteran, and it was written because it was written in 1962 following a guy who listened to the military-industrial complex speech by Eisenhower. He wrote that speech at the height of the Cold War. He wrote that poem at the height of the Cold War, and he said his influence was the Fear the Military-Industrial Complex speech by President Eisenhower on his departure. And in 1963, it was released. It's called Masters of War. It's written by a poet named Robert Zimmerman. And
okay, I think I know who that is.
Right. So you might want to see the Eddie Vedder Pearl Jam version of that. If people are a little younger than me, that might be more palatable. But Bob sang it acoustically early in 1964 was the last time he ever did it acoustically. He didn't do it acoustically again until 1994 at the Hiroshima Day conference in Tokyo. That was the last time he ever performed it acoustically, and he's done it electrically with a band. But you may want to take a look at the Eddie Vedder version. Nothing is more poignant than those words for today, with Ukraine and everything else that we've been going through. I just read it this morning and I was stunned how relevant it is to today's world situation, with the nuclear saber rattling and the nonstop money that is being drained from the incredible coffers of the United States and being just literally released into the ether. I mean, unchecked, unstopped, nonstop. And this is the American people's money. And it's just
like Smedley Butler, even before that. It just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
This is our celebrating Veterans Day Friday Black Pill episode of America's Untold Stories. I hope everyone is enjoying it. And the next question lineup is, will Giselle Barretto Fetterman be a great senator?
I think he's just going to vote along. That's his wife, I guess, the illegal alien who married him. She'll be obviously she'll be like Alec Baldwin's wife and run his life or something. I'm not really sure. But I mean, he's just going to vote along party lines. I mean, I don't think, he's going to do anything in particular unless he begins to put a campaign together for 2024. But I mean, I saw the new governor of Shapiro immediately came out within 24 hours saying he's going to destroy fracking in the state of Pennsylvania.
Oh, good. I'm sure they don't like employment in it anyway.
Right. Good work, my friends.
Diane wants to know, will we be streaming any of our Dallas visit? Absolutely.
Yeah.
A way, probably, definitely on locals, heavy, especially anything informal or whatever, because with YouTube, we do try to have a sort of set episode. We're trying to figure out how to do next Friday stream from there, and we're exploring live from Dealey Plaza, right? As a possibility.
Yeah, that's a possibility, depending on the weather and variables. And, the worst case scenario, we can do it from the conference place.
Oh, definitely. And I plan to, hopefully, between Mark and I, and however we do it, I don't know if maybe Mark interviewing and I'm filming and streaming or whatever, that probably would work best, because Mark's going to obviously ask much more intelligent questions than I will when it gets deep into the Kennedy. But we're going to be collecting material. So some recorded, some streamed,
right.
Some both. I really do. Obviously, I push locals a lot, but I'm really saying, consider following us on locals, because a lot of it will be locals exclusive.
If it works, I'd like to do it every year, because it could be a good central meetup. And I say, if people want to meet up, let us know. You could join the conference. I think it's only $50 for the conference itself. I mean, from the citizen, it's not expensive. It's the Citizens Against Political Assassination. It's the oldest JFK conference in America, and very righteous group of people. I mean, Cyril Wecht is going to be there. The coroner, Cyril Wecht. We're going to try. I mean, they're feeding him. I mean, he's the star of the show. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to him, but I mean, if you're interested in the topic and you're in Texas or even one of the border states or close by, I mean, I'd strongly recommend that you get down to Dallas and see these people. They're not going to be around forever.
No, especially Cyril. I mean, and we're seeing that with your friends, Mark. Sadly,
I'm dropping them like flies, and I lost one this week. We may want to run this video. This guy, Paul Schrade, was a guy that I had shot some documentary footage of. He had been shot in the head himself by Sirhan during the assassination of Robert Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel here during a political campaign. This is a shot of, passed away 2 nights ago, the age of 97, an American original, Paul Schrade, very close to the Kennedy clan, and former United Auto Worker executive who worked closely with the Kennedy family. We didn't get along on everything politically, that's for sure. I mean, he was obviously a liberal leftist, and we didn't agree, but we were friends, and it allowed us to function as friends. I mean, he lived nearby me, and I was able to go up into the Hollywood Hills where he lived, and he had asked me to represent him in the Sirhan parole hearing because of his age and his in the middle of COVID. So I represented Paul Schrade in the Sirhan parole hearing with Robert Kennedy Jr., Bobby the Third, who's Robert Kennedy Jr.'s son, and the second brother who works at Fox News, the other Kennedy. And we were talking to the parole board, and to my surprise, they believed and listened to my angle of how I presented it, and they voted to parole Sirhan. And I was representing Paul Schrade in that parole hearing, so I was kind of surprised, but they voted to parole Sirhan, and later Newsom put the kibosh on it, saying that Sirhan was far too dangerous a man in the 80s, this tiny little man, as a physical threat to the surrounding public after Gavin Newsom, the governor, had released 58,000 violent felons of his own. So this is not a guy who is opposed to releasing violent felons. He released 58,000 last year, but he voted against his own hand-picked parole board in the case of Sirhan. That being said, I had begun a documentary on Paul Schrade, and this is a 2-minute clip, if Eric could run that. And here's another reenactment. This is also showing the takedown with the gun and the proximity of the handgun to Bobby. Here, again, reenactment of Cesar shooting RFK, pulling him backwards onto him with his gun drawn, which he claims he did. Yeah. Okay, it's not that far-fetched. Here is a close-up of shot 2. This is Cesar gun position 2, right in back of him. This is probably the armpit shot here, going up into the ceiling, Paul. If you follow that angle. Now this is your guy. Here's Jim Yoda. This is what I wanted to show you. With the receipt in hand, this is Jim Yoda holding the Cesar gun receipt, which says, if you could read that.
Yeah, I've got a copy of that.
Okay, so it says, on the day of September 6th, Paulie, that's what I was trying to tell you, not June 6th.
Yeah.
September 6th, 1968, received $15 from Jim Yoda, help for gun involved HR 22, pistol 9-shot, serial number Y1332, signed Thane E. Cesar.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty official document.
Yeah.
Right?
And the police ignored that for a while. And then Cesar's wife, after he died, said that she was being harassed. She finally gave a copy to the LAPD after he died. So they didn't have that, didn't recognize that. They didn't want to say anything.
Right. Well, John Christian says that Yoder gave it to him when he visited him, and that he didn't turn it over to LAPD because they didn't ask. Which is pretty interesting. Now, this guy, this is Sergeant Hank Hernandez, who later becomes.
He was at my house.
No.
Yeah.
This guy?
Yeah.
You mean to investigate the case, or?
Yeah, to interview me.
Oh, after the case.
After the case.
Oh, I thought you meant way after. Okay.
No.
So what did he say to you?
Several days later.
What did he say?
Well, I just think, talked to him, I didn't have any real memory except being shot, and seeing Bob do.
Wow, that was really interesting. Just for the people who don't know what we were talking about, we're talking about the gun used to kill Bobby Kennedy by Thane Eugene Cesar, the security guard, and how he sold it to a fellow worker from the Burbank Skunk Works plant where he worked, named Jim Yoda. And Yoda produced the receipt, which showed definitively that Thane Eugene Cesar had sold him the gun in September of 1968, as opposed to February of 1968, before the assassination, as Thane Eugene Cesar had told the LAPD authorities. That document that Paul was referring to was a smoking gun in a lot of ways, showing that the gun was in the possession of Thane Eugene Caesar before the assassination, and was used in the, according to the coroner, the actual murder weapon.
Yeah, and I mean, you have a lot of footage. Hopefully,
yeah. I mean, if we
will.
Will. Oh no, we're definitely gonna. I just got to get an editor on board to do that. We got busy doing some other stuff, but in memory of Paul, I mean, I was taking him through a photo album of events to get his comments about it. And he knows more about it than I do, even though he was shot in the head that night by Sirhan. The first shot in the evening was by Sirhan, straight into Paul's head. And he said it felt like he had stuck his finger in a socket, like an electrocution. And of course, he was laying down in a pool of blood. And then Thane Eugene Caesar put the shots into the very back of Bobby Kennedy, which now Robert Kennedy Jr. believes, as well as I, that this is the way, as did Thomas Noguchi, the coroner. There's very, very little wiggle room around the forensics of the murder of Bobby Kennedy any longer. And Paul's entire life, the reason he wanted to get Sirhan out of jail was not so much about Sirhan. It was about the reopening of the case with the LAPD and
finding out the truth.
Yeah. Getting to the bottom of the case physically, not any conspiratorial thing, not about mind control. And they had tried for years. Every time he came up for parole, they would come in with all these different experts about mind control and hypnosis and MK Ultra. And the parole board is really a blue collar functioning operation that does not want to hear about MK Ultra. That is not their job. So I tried a different approach to get Sirhan paroled, and it worked. And apparently Newsom thought otherwise, but that's, he's going to come up again for parole. So we'll see.
All right. I'm going to jump to Rumble for a little bit. We got a $5 Rumble rant from Taytone. Mark, you nailed it on these races. I was hoping more observers would help, but apparently not. You kind of answered this earlier. So anyway, how do we flip the house when New York and California counts items for over a month? We just talked about it. So
right. That's just one idea of many on how to do it, is to end the madness, is to have the big cities report in first and flip the zeitgeist on counting itself legally. I don't mean, they're not going to do it without legal maneuvering to make this a law, that the larger the Democratic center, they have to put their, everyone should, I'm talking about, let's say everyone counted and they're done, right? Okay. What we discussed last week with LBJ is whoever gives their number, then you can go into nefarious methods to top that number. So what I'm saying is, when the counting is done, the reporting comes out of the cities first.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Flea Speech. That's a good name. Flea Speech.
Flea Speech, yeah.
Rumble. You like the Rumble username, so
they're insane. They're crazier than anything. It's like they're a renegade group.
Well, that's a renegade thing, yeah.
Yeah.
This is for you. Do you know Verlaine's fabulous poem, My Familiar Dream?
I couldn't do it by heart, but yes.
Okay, and would you consider modern day songwriters as poets? I think I know the answer to that.
The guy that I just read, this so-called Zimmerman fellow from Hibbing, Minnesota.
That's a song.
Says that Verlaine was one of his main influences. So I can only say yes to that. Verlaine influenced Zimmerman and Hibbing.
It makes me think. One of the people I like a lot is Akira the Don, and. But songwriting, songs being poems, it makes perfect sense. He was talking about how he takes the Jordan Peterson lectures, Jocko Willink statements, Rogan, different people, and he puts it over that lo-fi hip hop tone.
Wow.
And the idea behind it was, I forgot who he listened to, but he said when he was growing up, he was listening to a spoken word artist, who would do spoken word over music, and the guy was depressing as shit. And was total communist, anti-work, anti-everything, and Akira was saying that he was like, my life just really sucked, and I realized well, I'm feeding this garbage in my brain. So what if I feed inspirational or thoughtful commentary? And he has like Alan Watts. I mean, a lot of people.
Weird. Okay.
And he puts it over the lo-fi hip hop. And as he puts it, you're only going to want to listen to the Jordan Peterson lecture so many times, or a person's lecture so many times. But if you put it over a bed of music and it's really good, you'll listen to that lecture hundreds of times. And it helps train your mind by listening to thoughtful, inspirational speech. So anyway, that's
I'm going to take a guess and say the guy he's referring to was Gil Scott-Heron.
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. But he said it was just really, it was a message.
Oh, yeah. The rats just bit my sister Nell, but Whitey's on the moon. Look that one up. I mean, I hope there's a guy out there named Nate the lawyer, and I bet you he's hip to Gil Scott-Heron. If he's not, I'd be shocked. He may be,
depending on.
Rats just bit my sister Nell, but Whitey's on the moon. and I think he talks about that in Baltimore. So check it out, Nate.
I believe. Definitely. Okay, so back to locals. Fertile ground for research is FBI's Waco cover-up, including the grandson of a Nazi Party founder.
Okay.
Maybe.
I mean, we could keep beating these dead horses, but there's new horses that are much more interesting to me. The fact that the head of the FBI asked the federal court to keep sealed the laptop of an unusually weird guy named Seth Rich for 66 years. Seems like one of the strangest requests in the history of jurisprudence. After being told for 5 years that there was nothing to this particular murder, we are now supposed to accept the fact that the head of the FBI is asking the computer to be sealed for 66 years. A stranger media request I have yet to hear since, the request to seal the JFK records, for generations. I mean, what could possibly be on Seth Rich's computer? We're not even allowed to ask, but the head of the FBI is asking for the FBI to seal a computer of an American citizen with no crime other than he's the victim of a random murder.
Exactly. Your average mugging, you obviously seal whatever's there, because anybody walking around who's mugged, we want to seal whatever they have on them.
Who knows what's on there? You'd have to seal his computer. I mean, everybody knows that.
And their phones too. Any citizen that's just, randomly
which spins me off onto another thing about what my belief was with Seth Rich was he was the guy that downloaded he was a
WikiLeaks.
But he was the guy that gave it to the ambassador from England, who then gave it to Assange, and most of us know the story. And that was the beginning of the Russian hacking story. And the reason I mention that is because I have professed to friends and maybe on the show, I don't know, a couple of times, but I believe that there was a Soviet Operation Paperclip that happened.
Right on
time. Way to go, Danelli.
I'm sorry.
Right, that was a good one. I believe that there was a Soviet Operation Paperclip that occurred in this country in the early 90s, where the communist Soviet apparatchiks fled the Soviet Union upon its collapse and went to the United States, like when we brought in the Nazis after World War II. And I believe that those Soviet bigwigs infiltrated into the Democratic Party, and it's taken decades, but their influence is now pervasive. And I could tell you one in particular, if you want to look up an example of this. Check out a cat named Aparovich, Dmitry Aparovich. Now, Dmitry Aparovich had a company called CrowdStrike, and CrowdStrike was his cybersecurity company. There's a Soviet guy whose father was a Soviet nuclear scientist, came in, again, the collapse of the Soviet Union. These were true believers, my friend. These were true believers. Just like the Nazis when they came here of Operation Paperclip. History is going to indicate to us at some point there was a Soviet Operation Paperclip that came into this country. Now, his CrowdStrike was the one that took the servers for the DNC to investigate the servers for the hacking by the Russians, which he claimed he saw in the servers. That was the original distraction from the Seth Rich laptop. which is why I'm bringing it up. And he is now on the Council of Foreign Relations, Dmitry Aparovich. He has now buried himself deep, deep, deep into the American deep state. And this is a Soviet apparatchik. Keep that in mind. These Soviets have come here and have buried themselves in the Democratic Party. That's why we saw Biden's nominee a number of months ago, who graduated, the economics nominee, who graduated from the University of Moscow, wanting to implement Soviet-style economic techniques in the United States, including digital currency, and was rejected by the Senate. It was just a bridge too far, even for us. So that woman was rejected because she had been a shoplifter, of all things. They found out that she had shoplifted, so those were the grounds for rejecting her. And by the way, it's now 2 years. We still don't have an ambassador to India. And in about 4 weeks, the mayor, Garcetti, of LA is going to be unemployed. And he's still on the books as the nominee for the ambassador to the world's largest democracy, with whom we do not have an ambassadorial relationship, because Biden refuses to pull the nomination. And according to Chuck Grassley and others in the Senate, he lied under oath, this gentleman Garcetti, and he is a lame duck. So at some point, and nobody covers this, I do, I find it fascinating that this thing is still in play, but it's not. Anyway, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that over.
By the way, we have an episode where we talk about that, corrupt mayors, and it goes into your family history too. If you guys want to check that out,
yeah, check out the corrupt mayors, because you'll see how the machine, and we mentioned this last week, that machine that started in urban areas is now spawned into a national machine. And Barnes, I think, talked about this, or somebody did, but this thing is now national. The former Boss Tweed Tammany Hall model is now gotten into a national scope.
Okay, I'm going to another place. Couple questions. These actually came in over email with a PayPal donation.
Oh, my God. Oh, wow.
So when folks are saying I'm distracted, keep in mind that I'm trying to spin a few plates here. This is a two-part question, so I'm going to just read through it and then we can figure out. It's about Kennedy. Who were the actual shooters? My belief is the actual assassins were men from the 2506 Brigade. They had access to the latest CIA technological updates and weapons. The men of the 2506 Brigade felt betrayed by JFK and did not have a loyalty to the USA. Most importantly, if they had been captured and did talk and say they were doing the CIA's bidding because they were not American citizens, there is plausible deniability by the CIA or any governmental agency. Do you all agree with that thinking? That's the first question.
Am I supposed to answer that one?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, all right. So that's like one of these vague, thematic. The Boy Scouts shot Kennedy. Let me get more specific. Buell Wesley Frazier's gun was found. The British Enfield rifle was found on the roof of the Texas School Book Depository. Sheriff Wethersford was on the roof of the criminal courts building with a sniper rifle and scope. These are two physical rifles of men who were arrested. I mean, one was arrested, and that was Buell Wesley Frazier in his house, where they found the ammo and a British Enfield rifle in his house. I believe it's the same British Enfield rifle that they took off the roof. He said he was eating lunch in the basement of the school book depository in the dark for reasons that nobody can explain, not even Buell Wesley Frazier, who was given 2 lie detector tests and was physically arrested by Dallas police. The only other man arrested in the assassination of JFK was Buell Wesley Frazier, who drove Oswald to the Texas School Book Depository, who I believe was a backup patsy. And I think they flipped him to do their bidding, and that he was one of the shooters. And we're going to get into Mac Wallace next week, Eric. So Mac Wallace's fingerprints are up there in that Texas School Book Depository on those boxes. You can't get around that.
The convicted murderer, Mac Wallace.
Convicted murderer, Mac Wallace, who was the hitman for LBJ. Was there military involvement? Absolutely. We talked about Jack Crichton. We talked about that organization out of San Antonio, and we talked about a general named Walker, who had the world's greatest shooting team in Augsburg, Germany, and won the trophy every year for rifle shooting. So I think that Walker rounded up the physical men, and it may have been 5 or 6 shooters, but just to name names, the sheriff on his deathbed, got angry at somebody who asked him if he got off a shot, on the 22nd, and he, told them to go F themselves. But he did have a hot rifle up there, according to another deputy who handled his rifle on the roof. He was up there with a scope and a silencer on it, of all things. And then you've got the Dow Tex building. We know that Jim Braden was arrested when he came out of the Dow Tex building. And the second floor window was a sniper's spot. So, again, I don't know who was in that window, but we've got the shot from the roof of the Texas School Book Depository. And you say, why the roof? Because that shot, I believe, was the stray shot that went across the street and was also the shot that went down in almost a 90-degree angle into Governor John Connally's back wrist thigh. Look at the angle of the bullet that went through Connolly. It's almost straight down. Forget about the magic bullet. Even if you trace it back to the 6th floor window of the depository, that dog does not hunt. That bullet goes at an 85-degree angle, and I believe was shot straight down by the far edge of the Texas School Book Depository roof down into Connolly. Whether he was aiming at Connolly, I'm not really sure of that, but just that bullet trajectory indicates it came from almost straight above.
Okay, the second question is extremely long, so I'm just going to go through the first part of it and just, well, because it's, and I'm not trying to be rude. I think Mark will definitely understand this. It's so much easier if there's a question like, is fill in the blank this, or what do you think of this? If you give a monologue about your considerations and thinking, I do appreciate your input and your thoughts, but it's very difficult to answer a question when it's stating out what your philosophy is on or your theory is.
You could leave your philosophy in the comments section afterwards. I mean, we read them, Eric and I, so
yes,
you're not going to be begrudged. I mean, unless you're a lone nutter, don't come here. If you want a beer, you ain't 21 years old.
I just wanted to point that out because I don't want to be rude and short shrift, but there's a thing of trying to get done. So second and more important question is, even if the Warren Commission knew Kennedy was killed in the conspiracy, why could the Warren Commission not speak the truth?
There's no reason why they couldn't speak the truth. The Warren Commission was a cover-up commission, not an investigative body. I mean, you got it backwards. I mean, they're not looking at anything. They're rolling backwards. I mean, what the senator from Pennsylvania was trying to do with the magic bullet, they're trying to create a frame and a story and a narrative to meet a final objective. You know, as the assistant attorney general said, we need to convince the American people that Oswald acted alone. Okay, why? Because of whatever reasons they have, you know, whether they're good-natured reasons or the Soviets or the Cold War, whatever it was. They were all on the same page to create this narrative that this is the way it happened. It wasn't an investigative body at all. The FBI was not investigating this. They were merely cooperating with them. Same with the CIA. And there was no real investigation going on. There's a lot of interviews.
There was individuals, but then that was part of the problem because FBI agents would actually go fill out the forms and ask the questions, and they'd say, go lose that stuff.
Right. I mean, like I've said many times, the best evidence from the FBI, the original 301 interviews that were done by them without any political bias, and those were pure FBI documents where they just wrote down in their interviews what the person was saying. You know, the fact that Frazier's mother was in the kitchen and watched Oswald get into the car without a curtain rod package is in an FBI document, or 301. The fact that the manager or the assistant manager, the loading dock, who saw Oswald get out of Frazier's car and come in to punch the clock and did not see curtain rods in his hand, is also an FBI document. These are real documents by real people who were real witnesses that were buried from the Warren Commission. They were buried, but they do exist, and I've read them.
Okay. Question from Rumble. The big guy means 10%. gave us $5 and says, question, LBJ's politics changed substantially after.
Wait, that's the guy's name? That's the guy's name?
The big guy means 10%.
That's great. That's great.
I told you, I'm making a point, reading them. LBJ's politics changed substantially after JFK died. Who or what could have sway over him to push through his newfound liberal agenda and keep him from running for a second and half term?
His politics never changed because of JFK's death. First of all, that theory is preposterous. That never happened. And his motivation was, as he said, I'm going to have these N-words voting Democratic for 200 years. Okay, that's his quote. That's his quote. What's his motivation? That quote. Did it work? Yes.
Yeah, you also mentioned before, too, that he had an oddball kind of, and I'm not trying to be rude, but like a hick sensibility. Like he did have sympathy to a particular type of person.
You're talking about sympathy of a psychopath. You're talking about sympathy of a psychopath, of a megalomaniac. I mean,
that's true.
Right, of an alcoholic bipolar maniac.
Well, Hitler loved dogs.
If you read the memoir of the White House butler, a black dude, and how LBJ acted at night, running around in his bathrobe with Jumbo out, drunk out of his mind, yelling the N-word all through the White House, you may take another look at his civil rights positions.
Well, yeah, no surprise there. All right. Let's see. Do you have any untold stories about the Federal Witness Protection Program? There must be countless stories of abuse in that.
Oh, what's his name? We could do the one about Henry Hill. I mean, there's some interesting.
You know him, right?
Yeah, he ended up at Chabad, the Jewish rehab. Maybe we could do Henry Hill because
that would be a good one.
The witness protection program part of Henry Hill's life has never really been covered. He keeps getting arrested, selling hundreds of hits of ecstasy, and the FBI has to keep giving him new identities to protect him, but he keeps getting arrested, and then eventually gets addicted and goes into rehab himself, marries a Jew broad. I say that with quotations from Goodfellas and by Ray Liotta. But yeah, it could be a good subject.
Okay, I put it on the list. Do you have thoughts about documentarian Ron Wyman?
I don't know who Ron Wyman is.
All right.
Okay. I know who Roz Wyman, who passed away this week, is my friend. I have thoughts about her.
What can we learn from the Box 13 scandal in 1948? Hasn't stopped.
No. I mean, what we can learn from it is that you can't give the final count and have your opponent not have the final count so he can trump your final count. I mean, that's what I was talking about earlier in the show about having the cities report in first. So they can't keep doing this every single election. They're now doing this even in red states. They're now doing this in Memphis. They're doing this, in places that they never did it before. In national elections. I'm not talking about congressional. Obviously, congressional is a little bit different, but these regions that are bigger have to report in first. And the same thing used to happen in Broward, as we're all well aware, until DeSantis put the kibosh on it, kind of driving a stake into their hearts there in Broward County. But they fought tooth and nail to keep their system going. We're still counting. We're still counting in Broward County.
Wow. Okay, back to locals. The Jane Lane sent a $10 tip. And question, who is the godfather of these selection activities? When did it start? Who came up with the idea? And then, again, it's a personal theory in that.
Oh, I think that Mark Elias is the modern brain behind this current selection activity. It's Elias, from what I understand.
Okay, and Math wants to know on locals, new parole hearing for Sirhan?
Yeah, there's going to be one in March. Oh, yeah. By law.
Go to that?
I doubt it because
that's right. He shit all over you, didn't he?
He denounced me after of course, as I said on Twitter yesterday about Paul, Sirhan is, and this is a quote the Israelis, Sirhan has never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. He wrote a letter to his lawyers denouncing me after I got him paroled. And I think it's because of my support of the state of Israel and his hatred of Israel is my only idea of why that happened. But the letter is part of now of my collection of valuable items having been denounced by Sirhan.
You got to take a picture and put it on Locals.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a picture, put it on Locals. It's a great letter. And the lawyer for him, as soon as they found out Paul Schrade gave me the letter, he wasn't supposed to give me the letter, but Paul Schrade sent me the letter because here I was. He couldn't figure this out, Schrade. He was like completely befuddled as to what was going on. And he gave me the letter. And then I got an email from Sirhan's lawyer saying that I had no authorization to release the letter, even though it's about me. And I said, I think I do. Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean?
All the more reason then.
Right.
Okay, somebody from Locals is asking if we know about this. The tapes turned over by the FBI came from security cameras various companies had mounted outside office buildings near the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. So this is Oklahoma City. They are blank at points before 9:02 a.m. when a truck bomb was carrying a 4,000-pound fertilizer and fuel bomb detonated from the building, Trinidad said. 4 cameras in 4 different locations going blank at basically the same time on the morning of April 19th, 1995. There ain't no such thing as a coincidence, Trinidad said. They're asking, do we know anything about that? Have we looked into that?
I don't know about the 4 cameras, and I usually believe that the cameras and the footage is just kept by the Justice Department. They're under no obligation to release this so some conspiracy buff in Ohio can get off on it. I mean, even if it shows what it shows, you know what I mean? Like when we learned about the World Trade Center, the first bombing, it was a similar truck bombing, and thermite was put on the base of the girders in the garage in the World Trade Center. So when 9/11 did happen, the idea of thermite was not bizarre because it had happened in the first World Trade Center bombing led by the blind sheik out of Brooklyn. So thermite was used there. So when we talked about Building 7 being thermited at the base, I got that from the first bombing. Now, do they have footage of that truck? The first bombing, they do have some footage of that truck. But what difference does it make? They caught the blind sheik is in prison. They came back in World Trade Center 2, The Reckoning, and came back and completed their mission. So, I mean, simply because they don't release the footage of January 6th, for instance, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. They don't want to help anybody. They know how crazy people can get on the internet with this footage. You know what I mean? I mean, I could name you one film that they learned from that it didn't go well. That's why they don't release any more films. And that's called the Zapruder film, folks. Okay. You live and learn.
Yeah, that definitely did not work well.
It did not work for them. Imagine the world we lived in today in terms of Kennedy analysis if they had seized the Zapruder film, which they did, and never released it. And I mean, the amount of speculation and science, and I don't want to hear about the alteration of the Zapruder film because Robert Grodin was there, and the chain of custody is solid. What happened in 1992 to the Zapruder film is meaningless. That is a deep state technique to undermine the incredible greatness of the veracity of the Zapruder film, people. Do not take the bait on the altered Zapruder film. It's a crock of shit, okay? Just to end this speculation on the alteration of the Z film, that this guy said this because in 1990, the chain of custody on the Z film was never broken. How do we know? Because of Robert Grodin, who was there.
All right. Did you hear about the Washoe County yesterday in Nevada? Apparently, live streams went dark, and 9 minutes later. Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it was 9 hours later, not 9 minutes later, right?
I don't know. Well, I was just
it was out for hours. That's when they do the load-ins. Okay. I mean, people, you got to get hip to this. I mean, other than catching them red-handed, which apparently we have a couple of times with some other things, we can't allow this structure to repeat itself. We just have to say no, as Nancy Reagan said.
Okay, Mia Santiago with a $10 Rumble rant. Lads, you guys are like my cool uncles who always have great banter and stories to tell.
Wow, we're dirty uncles, so don't be so complimentary.
Okay, let me see.
Wait, did she have a question or
no? But it was a rant, and I want to read it.
Oh,
but,
a rant. Yeah.
And thank you very much.
Rant lady.
That's right. Rumble rant. Question: was Jodie Foster a stupid young college girl or an asset getting Hinckley to make a move?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know. It cuts both ways. I mean, the calls went back and forth for a long time. Like I said, the girls in the dorm were mocking Hinckley repeatedly. So I don't know. I mean, he was asking her out on dates and she was egging him on. I mean, she obviously was not going to go out on a date with him.
But could have been Mean Girl.
Right, but it's mean lesbian girls.
Which would be even more hilarious.
Right.
When they're young and immature, I mean, I could almost see that as being coincidental. I'm sure somebody.
Oh, yeah. No. I don't think it was deep state at all, especially, I mean, at that point in her life. But who knows with her? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. All right. Selection fornication has me reluctant to go out again. Incredibly, two largest dim control countries in our state had historical turnout for 2022, ensuring popular Republicans lost. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. Well, again, it's part of it is the Google factor that Robert was talking about, how they put their fingers on the thumb. We have to get Musk to give up Section 230 protection. If we can get Musk to rescind his own protection under Section 230, begin to dismantle 230 with Josh Hawley and JD Vance and some of these cats coming in there, that is the number one priority of this, the opposition, which is us, to try to go after big tech. I'm still calling for Occupy Big Tech, with thousands and thousands of people having a sit-in at the gates of the corporate headquarters of big tech. This is not rocket science, my friends. This is just sitting physically in front of the gates of big tech until this thing ends. And I'm talking about non-violent, peaceful protest of thousands of people sitting there and at the corporate gates of these big tech units that are robbing our democracy. Mark, my dreams are exactly the same as
movies, I'm guessing.
Oh, I mean, she might be saying that her dreams are exactly the same every night, that she has the same dream.
Could be.
We don't know.
I'll make the assumption.
By the way, who's ever been blocked, email Eric, because I can't keep up with it.
Oh, nice try.
No, I mean, because we're not going to remember from the show. So email Eric. We'll see what we can do.
All right.
You'll be blocked again. What difference does it make? You know.
Well, okay, fine. If you put it on the form, I'm just going to go.
Right, like one guy
and send it right to him.
One guy said I was this name at that time, but now I've changed my life. I'm better now. Who knows what's going on?
Well, we also had another guy. Who was it? You went on your way, you unblocked him, and he said, "You know what? I was wrong. You're a baby."
Right. The guy went back at me again. Yeah, I took the bait.
It was quite a thing, and Mark just sends it to me, just like boom. I'm like, what do you want me to do? This is your crowd.
There's a lot of crazy people out there. I'll tell you right now.
All right, Ray J, one of our mods. In 1941, paints Pont Saint Esprit, Frenchtown, poisoned by ergot. Any info on MK and LSD production nearby? I don't know.
Well, no, I don't know about MK or LSD production nearby, but that story is true about them. Ergot, I mean, it's happened for centuries. I mean, it's moldy bread.
That Salem witch trial, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah, I believe the Salem witch trials had the same thing. And, it's just an interesting, similar thing to the LSD experiments that they used on the U.S. Army. You could see that footage on YouTube of the men marching under the influence of LSD, which is really funny.
Okay, well, here we go. Diana confirms it.
I meant my dreams go the same as Mark's.
Like a movie.
Oh, like a movie. Yeah. To me, it's an entertainment hour, of like, oh, this might be good.
All right. Dreadnought Trucking LLC, new YouTube member. Thank you very much.
I thought the guy was a member, but maybe not.
I don't know.
Dylan sold his soul?
For what? As he said it.
For one interview on 60 Minutes with Ed Bradley?
They're saying he said it on the interview. Maybe he was joking.
Oh, come on. Come on, it's crazy.
And that might have been a joke, like, oh, I sold my soul for a sandwich, or I don't know.
Well, I believe what Bob talked about was being divinely inspired through God, being his muse for inspiration. I think Bob has talked about that he can't repeat it because these muses were not drug inspired like some other people, but that he got these lyrics coming from him from another source, and he can't control it or repeat it.
Okay, I think they were torn down, right, Ambassador?
Yeah, it's Robert F. Kennedy High School now. It was torn down, and the high school was named after him. And Paul Schrade was there to cut the ribbon when they opened that high school.
That's kind of ironic if I think about school shootings.
Yeah, it's also I think there's a Paul Schrade library in there. Huh. Scotland.
In the film Prime Cut, is the character played by Gene Hackman based on LBJ?
Oh, I'd have to look at that again. I vaguely remember Prime Cut. I don't know. I forget. I know it was Gene Hackman, but I don't know if it was based on LBJ.
All right. Advice from JS. Sorry about your anger, Mark. I'm there with you. Yeah. You all need a break from crazy. Eat a nice meal, pet a dog, or a bear. There's a grow bear.
A grow bear. Have a drink. If I have a drink, it's going to get crazy. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Have a coffee.
More mysteries, please. Okay. Well, we're going to solve some mysteries, but first, we're going to take the country back. Thanks, Ziggy.
And this is from Ziggy here. If you had to choose one of your mini projects / adventures to make into a movie, which one would it be? And Ziggy's made ornaments.
Well, we're going to have an announcement pretty soon about the Oswald project. So that's why we've been putting it off. There's going to be an announcement made probably in a week or two about some movement on the Oswald project. Ooh. But as for a straight film, the RFK film, which is about what we described. So as a straight up feature film would be the RFK one, because the Oswald thing is 10 hours. It's a mini series that I wrote with Oliver Stone, and we're going to do something with that. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say a lot of what we've covered is stuff you wanted to be in films like David Steves and other stuff, right?
Right. Well, those were film projects, but I'm saying if I had my druthers as to based on where we are today, right now, the Oswald mini series, which is 10 hours, we may be doing that in another format. And as for a feature film, I think the best feature film would be the RFK Must Die script that I wrote, which is I just my favorite for right now.
Cool. Have you heard about Ned Doheny?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's what's There Will Be Blood. I mean, that's the movie. It's based on Doheny. It's a great movie. Highly recommended. Second pick of the weekend. There Will Be Blood. Check that out. Daniel Day-Lewis, one of my favorite films of all time about Doheny.
All right. For me, do I know anything about Washington's Culper Ring? Yes, I know about it in general, but not deep into it.
What's the Culper Ring?
No, that was the spy ring that Washington had during the Revolution.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm sorry. Right.
Lindsay Mans, I hope our children learn more and more about U.S. history. Thank you for all your research into this, JFK gentlemen. Read, folks, read.
Yeah, that's why I did this. I didn't do this for my own benefit. I don't need to know the stuff I already know. I'm doing this for people's children out there, that there's a record of these stories in American history, because it's being scrubbed off of YouTube all the time. I was telling Eric about the episode we did last week. I went back to look at the history of American selection problems, and there was very little there. And I had to go to the well and immediately overnight some books to get to some of the historical events that we talked about last week.
Well, it's like statues.
Like statues, yeah. Look, the internet's a bunch of statues, bro. Do not lean on Wikipedia. Do not lean on Google. Get physical books in your hands. Sending donations to me to physically. I reluctantly and could buy them digitally. I don't want to do that because it's so vulnerable. Let me put it that way. I need the physical books in my hands. Plus, they've got footnotes and everything else. There's a lot of benefits to the physical books. But, believe me, that's my recommendation for everybody out there. If you want to give Christmas gifts to your kids, and give them freaking books, ladies.
All right. No, speaking of what you're saying earlier, Linda, that's right. We were trying to remember your name after
the
show.
Right. Yeah, write that one down.
Go to erichunley.com/contact.
Just remind Eric.
And just send it. erichunley.com contact form. It'll get to me.
We'll go.
Say what it is, and we'll definitely do that.
We'll go.
And Secret McSquirrel, our mod, who is our favorite squirrel, and why is it Secret McSquirrel?
Why is it me?
Because you're a fantastic mod.
That's I see what you're saying. Right. Well, she wasn't blocked. There's nothing, right? Or no?
No, she's not blocked. I don't believe.
Okay, all right.
But she does help.
I'm very moody. I'm very moody on Twitter.
He's moody off Twitter too, folks.
Right. I don't engage. I don't argue with anybody on Twitter. It's not why I'm there. I'm just there to post shit and get out. You know, I mean, if people come at me, I just block them. It's not why I'm doing it. I mean, I see David Viva gets into these philosophical debates with people all night. I mean, that's his game. I'm not into that.
No, he enjoys it.
He enjoys it. God bless him. He's got children and a wife. He's trying to stay away. And he says, I'm on Twitter, honey. I can't really come upstairs right now. You know.
Well, it was funny, too, because the second he was back in his account, Marion took a picture of him and said, here he is arguing with the internet again.
Right. I mean, look at it from her point of view. You know, there's
apparently her life was better when he was back on Twitter because he was boring the shit out of her.
There's an organization called Sexanon, and it's the Al-Anon for sex addicts. It's the wives mostly. And what they do is most of these guys are addicted to internet porn. So what's recommended in the program is to take away the mouse. So they when they leave, the wives are urged to take the mouse with them so the men could not be looking at internet porn while they're gone.
Wow.
Think about it, ladies. That's for the ladies out there. There's the tip of the weekend. Take the mouse.
But just the tip.
Just the tip of the weekend. Take the mouse.
Anyway, please tell the story of the Battle of Athens, best American untold story. Thanks from Casual Armory.
I think the Memphis thing, Barnes and I kind of talked about it briefly.
Okay.
I think it was in Memphis, but I could be wrong.
Do you think a good, decent FBI director would have access to read sealed documents? First, you got to find one.
Yeah, I think it's become so politicized now that we simply have to defund it. And look, we created DHS out of thin air. You know, give the duty, spread it out. I mean, when JFK said he wanted to scatter the CIA to the four winds, what he did was he created the DIA. And what scared him about the CIA was that they got guns and weapons. And he asked Bobby how they got the guns and weapons, and nobody knew. So he created the Defense Intelligence Agency. The Defense Intelligence Agency was supposed to replace the CIA before they blew his head off. And that never happened. The DIA was created, but the CIA was not taken away. And that's
they never are. We always just add. It's always additive.
Right. But the FBI should be defunded. And think about this. Think about this at home. What was the last crime they solved?
I wouldn't know.
Right. What is their function? Other than being a national police, political agency, what crimes do you remember the FBI solving last? I mean, you could look at Paddock if you want in Las Vegas, but they didn't solve that or even explain.
There's a lot of financial crimes that they do all the time that the low level stuff that we never see. You know, the boots on the ground FBI agents. A lot of them are really good.
They say that, but I mean, Barnes was talking about how they ripped open these safe deposit boxes in a bank, and the judge allowed them to do that. And we only hear about the aberrational things, even with white collar crimes today with the Bureau. I mean, other than political harassment, which seems to be their full-time job. Now, keep in mind, this current guy did not invent this. This goes back to Hoover, as Bob points out, Robert points out.
It got better, and then it got
worse. It got better, then it got worse. I mean, but at some point, you have to get this beast under control. It doesn't matter who the head of the FBI is. Sometimes the president of the United States must have to stand naked. I'll leave it at that.
With Jumbo. Mm-hmm. All right, Sparty Matt, thank you very much. You guys are the best. Happy Friday. I loved all Mark's.
I did go crazy. I did lose my mind. I just went full Rodney Dangerfield Tuesday night. I lost it. I hope people enjoyed that. I stayed up till like 4 a.m. doing that. Was a plant just out of curiosity, or was he just there at the right place at the right time? Yeah, that's the answer. Right place at the right time. I mean, there's there's other films, people. It's not just Zapruder. I mean, look at Robert Grodin's DVD, where he's got all the films in one DVD of the assassination. It's called Films of the Assassination, or Assassination Films by Robert Grodin. There's multiple films, folks. Nix was a film. There's a bunch of them.
I'm gonna look that up, see if I can get it.
Yeah, I have it. I mean, it's a great DVD.
Yeah,
because he enhances. You'd like it, Eric, because he enhances them and cleans them up and does stuff with them to make them more clear.
Okay, this is a horrible or a question that just like opens entire lines of conversation. Why are so many American Jews anti-Israel?
Well, I'll answer as quick as I can. I mean, Marxists are atheists. Marxists are not religious people. The American left, and there's a lot of Jews on the American left, are not religious Jews. These are, for the most part, people who are atheists who are Marxists, and that's really the answer. The working class and middle class and people who support the state of Israel among the Jewish population. Like, I was raised in a Union Jewish family, but we were religious people. My brothers were bar mitzvahed at the Western Wall in Israel. My father was Haganah. He went over there in 1948. After coming back, he went over as a soldier of fortune. I mean, we have a direct connection to the state of Israel. The people who are Marxist revolutionaries who happen to be Jewish, like George Soros, are not really the people who are going to support the state of Israel.
All right. Hi, Susan 17. Why would Musk agree to give up his 230 protection with all the shenanigans going on at Twitter? Yeah, that's a good question.
Because it's the right thing to do. Because it's the right thing to do.
He can't at the moment.
He's got to do it. He's got to do it.
Maybe eventually, but I don't think he can right now.
Whatever. I mean, that's what I believe. Morally, he should lead the way and give it up. Yeah, that would put them in an incredibly difficult position, the other big tech companies. It's a moral thing, and he will eventually do it. He is not going to wait for legislation to do it to him. He will do it on his own. Prediction.
What I'd like to see before that is if he open sources the algorithm.
I think he'll do that first, but I believe that he will give up Section 230 protection on his own.
All right. Pelosi has gone silent. Why? What is happening? I don't know.
It's called red wine, folks.
All right. Mark, what movie portrays the attitude and moral character of someone like Mark Elias or other dim bigwigs?
That's interesting. Well, you have to look at House of Cards with Kevin Spacey, the great.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah. He plays an LBJ type figure. In fact, he's got the Robert Caro books as set books on his desk. He says that at one point LBJ is his hero. The character that Spacey plays. And I hope he gets his career back. I mean, after this stupid trial that he went through.
Yeah, we'd like a last season of that, please.
Oh, my dear God. I mean, that would be fantastic. Just so much great political insight into that series.
Yeah. Really?
By the way, many actors in this town that I know are apoplectic about a guy going over to give his trophy to Elinsky, and there's a lot of angry people over that. There's a lot of angry members of SAG right now in this town, on both sides of the aisle. So I mean, people are appalled that happened.
All right, I saw this floating by on Rumble too. How's the Lewis Clark episode coming along? It's going to be a bit. We've got to go out of town. Other things going on, but.
I got to reread the diary. I don't think there's an Aaron Burr connection to it in my story. I don't know. There is in the real life, but this is a different Lewis and Clark.
All right. And
wasn't there one with Chris Farley and David Spade? A comedy Lewis and Clark? No, there was a comedy Lewis and Clark, I think.
I don't know. Maybe.
Let let me tell you something. This guy, I don't know if it's this guy, but if one more person asks me about these boys on the track in Arkansas, I'm going to throw up. Okay. This is, I have seen this so many times. I think it's by this guy. I mean, you talk about beating a dead horse. I have no connection to this thing. I don't know what it's about. I'm not very interested in it. I'm not interested in Arkansas to be interested. I mean, I know it's real. I know it exists. It's just not in my interest to go into that Barry Seal thing. I know the CIA has a lot of pilots. I don't think Clinton was running cocaine out of Peru. I just call me a little crazy. I think he snorted a lot of cocaine. I know that because Kinky Friedman told me so and did it with him. But as for this other thing in Arkansas, there's just too much foul meat on that bone.
Yeah. Anyway, Chris Banks, we know that House of Cards was originally British.
Yeah, we know.
But it was adapted and revised for an American story. So
hey, look, you could look at Monty Python. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy Firesign Theater. The tip of the week, folks. Audio tip of the week, Firesign Theater.
All right. Victor Davis Hansen says FBI is rotten all the way down. Not that the upper echelons are politicized and the rank and file are good guys. Perversion is ingrained due to selection and training. Oh,
he might be right. I'll tell you something about Victor Davis Hansen, who I like a lot. He has been late to the party on many, many of these recent developments where he eventually comes around. And don't get me wrong, I love Victor Davis Hansen, but started out as a never Trumper, started out as pro-vaccine, started out as pro-lockdown, and he eventually switched. But to me, it's too little too late on a lot of issues with Victor Davis Hansen. I meant to say that at some point on the show. And I love the guy. But he's got to be quicker on the switch. He's got to be a lot quicker on the switch.
All right. Well, on that, we're going to wrap things up. And
what?
Okay, Eric, chill. I didn't know I was hostile, but
Chris, I mean, he's got to get to that dog. I mean, he's obsessed with it. Chris, you got to stop him, Banks.
Not only I got to get to the dog. There we go.
Right.
But not only the dog, but
you're gonna bring that dog to Dallas or what? That dog won't hunt down in Dallas.
I don't know. You never know. Maybe he might find his way. We have ornaments now, created by Ziggy Shrug, including the illustrious Oswald. Customized for the year.
He's good at this. What happened to your food commercial? That was pretty good.
It was done for the month.
Oh, I see. Right.
I did the reads. So
anyway, we got 700 pounds of free food from Germany from HelloFresh.
Anyways, Ziggy made a whole bunch of different ornaments.
Oh, weird. That's weird.
That people can check out and order. Collectible. And I'll make sure I have a link in the.
What are the Germans going to do with no trees left in the Bavarian forest for Christmas?
I don't know. We even have a dreidel.
What?
Yes, there's even a dreidel. Is that in here?
Himmel Dalet Hayes.
Yep, here you go.
Wow, I have one like that. Oh, look at that. I would buy that.
And this is actually all of the shows that I'm involved in.
Is Nate on there?
Yeah, Nate and Eric's the show.
I think Nate's Jewish. I think Nate's really Jewish.
Well, Nate was in a Jewish fraternity.
There's something Jewish about Nate. I'm not really sure. First of all, the name sounds like a Jewish name, Nate or Nathaniel or whatever his name is, but that sounds Jewish. And his hair looks Jewish.
Okay. Obviously a standard Jewish cut. And speaking of Jewish, because we didn't, want to not acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Obviously didn't prepare well enough here. You always have the Happy Hanukkah.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Interesting.
So everything is covered, and I will try to make sure I get a link to her shop in the this show description.
Now, what about the hat and the stuff you had before?
The hat's still available. Merch link down below.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously.
Where did he go? He left? Oh, no, he's back. Here he is.
I had to find that.
Oh, he's got the bucket hat. Yeah.
The hat fell down.
Right. He's got an entire store there down below. He's got an entire
gravity, it just falls off. So anyway, We've got the hat, we've got Oswald. If you want to, there's also a pedestrian grow bear.
That's the one I like. I have that one here. He's sitting in the back. Look, there he is. See him in the chair?
There you go. Easter egg.
Yeah, he gets drunk at night. He walks around. He starts cursing me. It's unbelievable. He's right out of Ted too.
Yeah, believe it.
My recommendation, besides the movies that I recommended for the weekend, is Monday a holiday for Veterans Day? All right, we get it, Eric. We get it.
Today's holiday. Well, no, there's your grill bear.
Oh, okay. All right. Today it's a holiday today?
Yes.
Oh, a federal holiday.
Correct. Yes.
But things are closed?
Yes.
Oh, I
didn't get mail today.
What's the point of even living? Okay, so Dick, my TV streaming selection is Destiny Betrayed, the 4-part version that's on Amazon for people, unless you want to get the DVD, and it'll explain things that Eric and I are going to get into in Dallas with Cyril Wecht, who's featured in Destiny Betrayed, which was written by James DiEugenio, who hopefully we're going to interview in Dallas, who's going to be there showing this. And then Max Good is going to be there. So you may want to take a look at our Ruth Payne episode and his documentary, which is also available on Amazon about Ruth Payne. So there's a tie-in to America's Untold Stories that if you want to get into that groove of where we're going in Dallas, you may want to look at these things over the weekend.
Oh, perfect. And on that note,
that's the note.
We PayPal's always good to make Mark less angry, because we don't like it.
If you're not angry by now, folks, you got a problem. You got a real problem.
And we will be back on Tuesday to be talking about Mac Wallace.
Oh yeah, the Mac Wallace thing. Yeah, that's on Tuesday. That'll be great. Yeah, that's a good one. All I could say is the final words of our great leader, Robert Zimmerman: don't follow leaders, watch your parking meters.